I'm sure every time we heard this passage of the disciples of Emmaus, we can, see the scenario. These disciples that were going back home, all sad because they have witnessed that they have crucified the Lord and they have seen him dying on the cross. So just as the apostles that were in the upper room hiding, because they were afraid and they were sad and they were doubtful, these disciples decided to go home. And while they were on the road, they were thinking of what happened. And then the Lord appears and start walking with them. So we all have heard this gospel of the disciples of Emmaus, and I'm sure we have also meditated on what happened afterwards. That their hearts were burning and their eyes were open, and they returned. They went back to tell the good news to the apostles. Estoy seguro que en varias ocasiones que hemos escuchado este evangelio de los discípulos de Emaús, podemos identificar la situación, ¿no? Los discípulos que se encontraban tristes después de haber experimentado, haber sido testigos de la crucifixión y la muerte de su Señor, se deciden ir a su casa, ¿no? Muy tristes y comentando por el camino lo que había sucedido, y en eso el Señor Jesús aparece y empieza a caminar con ellos, y después lo reconocen después de escuchar las Escrituras, y ellos dicen: con razón nuestros corazones ardían cuando Él nos hablaba. Y podemos identificarnos con este pasaje y decir, bueno, pues es un pasaje muy bonito, ¿no? El Señor les explicó las Escrituras, entendieron, se les abrieron los ojos, su corazón ardía, y decimos qué bien terminó este evangelio, right? So we can say, now this is a wonderful gospel. Their eyes were open, they understood, who he was, and then they went back to Jerusalem to tell the others and what they have seen. What wonderful, wonderful gospel. But I want you to think on your experience in Mass. What is your experience when you come to church to celebrate the Eucharist? I want you to think a little bit. Quiero que piensen un poquito. ¿Cuál es mi experiencia cuando vengo a celebrar la Eucaristía? Cuando vengo a misa? What is my attitude for coming? And how do I leave church? How do I exit the church? What is my attitude, my disposition when I leave church? Que piensen un poquito en cuál es nuestra disposición para venir a la misa y cuál es nuestra disposición o nuestra actitud cuando nos vamos. Because remember what St. Luke's presents in today's gospel writing is the experience of the church of the first church, right? That was the experience. They will gather together, they will share the Eucharist, they will break the bread, and they will celebrate the Eucharist. From the very beginning, that's what Jesus did to the disciples of Emmaus. That's why they recognize him in the breaking of the bread in the Eucharist. So we know that this practice was already established, and they knew what this was. So they're talking about the Eucharist. They're talking about Mass in this gospel passage. And we can see what happened to the disciples of Emmaus when they recognized the Lord in the breaking of the bread. So el evangelista San Lucas nos habla en este evangelio de la práctica que ya se tenía la iglesia primitiva, los primeros cristianos, de compartir el pan, ¿no? De celebrar la Eucaristía, la misa, pues. ¿no? Desde los primeros inicios de la iglesia. Es lo que nos está hablando. Y cómo este partir del pan, participar de la Eucaristía, hace que los discípulos de Maús se les abran los ojos y les arda el corazón y se den cuenta que es el Señor, ¿no? Y vayan apresurados a dar la buena nueva. Now that I explained this and I give you a little time to think of our disposition to come to church and how, what is our disposition once we leave, let's see if it's the same disposition of the disciples of Emmaus. Vamos a ver si es la misma disposición de los discípulos de Maús. Because when we come to church, when we come to Mass, first of all, we come to encounter the Lord. And that's why we come to church. We come to encounter, to have a personal encounter with Jesus. Cuando venimos a la misa, venimos a tener un encuentro personal con el Señor. Venimos a buscarlo y a encontrarlo. Y a que nos muestre, a que nos hable, a alimentarnos de Él. So, the disciples of Emmaus, they were sad. They were doubtful. They were going back, and they found the Lord. When we come to church, the first encounter we have with the Lord is when we look at the priest that is acting in persona Christi, in the person of Christ. So, el primer encuentro que tenemos con el Señor cuando venimos a la Eucaristía es el encuentro con el sacerdote que actúa en persona Christi, en la persona de Cristo. Ahí está el primer encuentro que tenemos. Then the priest unfold to us the scriptures, unpack what the message of the gospel is about us. After listening to the word, and then the priest comes and explain to us this message from the gospel. So our encounter with the scriptures is the second time during the Eucharist that we have this personal encounter with the Lord as He explained to us the Father's will throughout the scripture, throughout the good news. La segunda ocasión que encontramos al Señor dentro de la misa es al escuchar las Escrituras, al escuchar la palabra viva del Señor en el Evangelio, que nos dice qué es la voluntad de Dios para nosotros. Y el sacerdote nos ayuda un poquito a entender, ¿no?, con la predicación lo que esto significa. And then the most important one, and the main one of our celebration, is our encounter with the Lord in the Eucharist. When we approach the table of the altar to be fed with the body and blood of Christ, to receive that nourishment for our souls, for our journey. So después encontramos también en la misa el encuentro más importante, ¿no?, que es el encontrar a Jesús en la Eucaristía, el poder alimentarnos con el cuerpo y la sangre del Señor, el poder alimentarnos con el alimento que nos da la vida y que nos ayuda en nuestro camino hacia el cielo. So we can see that in the Holy Eucharist we have these opportunities to meet the Lord, to encounter the Lord. And just as the disciples of Emmaus, that they encountered Him on the road, then they invited Him to stay over, that they feel their hearts burning when the scriptures were being explained to them by Jesus, and then seeing Him and recognizing Him in the breaking of the bread. And then when they were able to realize that it was the Lord, they said, "No wonder our hearts were burning within us." And they immediately went back and gave them the good news. And after that, the apostles went out and started preaching. And they gained a lot of souls for the Christians, for the first community of Christians. So podemos ver aquí que los discípulos de Emaús, ¿por qué el corazón ardía, no? Porque encontraron a Jesús en el camino, les empezó a explicar las Escrituras y después lo reconocieron en la fracción del pan. So let's go back to the question that I posed to you. Do we come to the church, to Mass, with this disposition to encounter the Lord, to find Jesus in the Word and in the Eucharist? Do we come with this, I need to be there. I gotta be at Mass. I have to encounter the Lord. Or if Mass and our attendance to church has become something else that I do on a Sunday, we have to think. And if when we leave church, our hearts are burning, are we ready to go out there and tell others what we have experienced? Because sometimes we leave church saying, oh, that sermon was terrible. The music, oh my God. And the servers on the altar, they didn't know what they were doing. And that's how we leave church, right? And sometimes we use these excuses to say, or it was too boring or too long. We're ready for the Father to give the blessing so I can walk out and don't worry about it until next Sunday. Or I'm ready to turn off the TV when it ends so I can get in line, in the restaurant that I like before all the people gets there. That shouldn't be our attitude, my brothers and sisters. Because again, we're coming to church to find the Lord, to encounter the Lord. Yes, like the disciples of Emmaus, with our problems, our difficulties, our struggles in life, our sadness, our doubts, because that's the way they were. But the Lord found them and explained to them the scriptures, and then shared with them the Eucharist. And that's why their hearts were burning. And that's why they went and tell the others what they have experienced. Pidámosle al Señor que, así como los discípulos de Emaús que iban de camino a casa y llevaban sus problemas, sus dificultades, sus dudas, estaban tristes por lo que había pasado, pero el Señor los encuentra, camina con ellos, les explica las Escrituras y después parte el pan con ellos y en la Eucaristía los reconocen y saben que es Él. Que esta sea nuestra actitud. Que también nuestra actitud sea aquella de decirle al Señor, quédate con nosotros, porque la tarde está cayendo y se hace tarde, para que vivamos contigo. Also, our attitude should be the one, just like the disciple of Emmaus, stay with us. It is late. The day is about to finish. We ask the Lord to stay in our lives so we can be in His presence and in contact with Him. So let us think about this. What is my attitude to come to church? Why do I come to church on Sunday or any other day when I come during the week? But let's focus on Sunday. Why do I come to church? Is it truly because I want to meet the Lord? I want to see Him in persona Christi, in the priest that is presiding the Eucharist. I want to see Him in the Scriptures presented to me. I want to see Him and experience Him in the breaking of the bread, in the Eucharist. So I can go out and say, no wonder my heart is burning, because I saw the Lord. And then we can keep moving. So pensemos en cuál es esa actitud con la cual venimos a la Eucaristía, a encontrar al Señor, a reconocerlo en la persona del sacerdote que actúa en la persona de Cristo. de las escrituras que me son presentadas, de el compartir la Eucaristía, para después poder salir y que nuestros corazones estén ardiendo. That's why our hearts always should be burning, just like the disciples of Emmaus. But we have to allow the Lord to do this into our lives. We have to say to him, just as the disciple, stay with us because it's late and the day is ending. Stay with us, O Lord, so we can hear you, so we can receive you, so that our hearts can be burning. Quédate con nosotros, Señor, para que te podamos recibir, contemplar y para que nuestros corazones puedan estar ardiendo. Amén.